our next speaker is Kate West. And Kate, you can unmute yourself, and I will do an introduction.
Hi, Ted.
Here it is. Hi.
Hi. I'm two people.
You're two people. Yes, I see.
Okay.
Kate is a filmmaker, and she's going to be speaking today. Her topic is "We Are the Future Ones: The Power of Community in Healing for Your Awakening." And she co-produced a film, "When Lightning Strikes: The Unsexy Side of Awakening." It's a documentary film and was inspired by a quest for answers during her own traumatic and ongoing Kundalini awakening. As a result, she founded a worldwide collective of experiencers, the When Lightning Strikes community. And to date, one of her proudest achievements is helping to spearhead this vibrant global collective of Kundalini experiencers who help one another not only to survive, but to thrive. And as a survivor of a Kundalini awakening that turned her life she loved upside down, Kate set out on a mission to find answers to questions she couldn't find anywhere else and to document the journey in a film. She discovered that when it comes to Kundalini awakening, there are some teachers, gurus, and guides who can provide the scaffolding we need to hold on to while our reference points for reality are rapidly fading away, but that ultimately we are the experts and that true healing happens in the relationships with family, friends, and other experiencers we meet along the way. Kate will help us discover how these awakenings and the relationships made are part of a collective movement toward the shared consciousness that our planet is calling for. So, Kate?
Hi.
You're on.
All right. Thank you, Ted. I wrote that so long ago that it was funny to hear it again. I was like, wow, that's a tall order. I'm going to do my best. But I really appreciate being asked to join you all here. Thank you so much to Linda for recommending me. And Mauro, I definitely needed like some ventral vagal toning. So I appreciate that, you know, pre going on live here. And what do I say about Joan Harrigan? You're like a legend. And we are literally balancing our computer on your book. So there's suddenly a cacophony of construction sounds around us. So if it's hard to hear, just let us know and we'll run inside. But, you know, I don't really consider myself an expert in anything. And when I was thinking about how I was asked to come here, this was my reaction. I'm going to share screen with you. Let's see. Share screen. We're going to share this screen. Can I share a portion of screen? Yes. So this is my reaction. Just 1 second. Can you see that? You can. Okay. All right, so that was my reaction. And that's the dude from the Big Lebowski, who's my all-time favorite guru. And I was thinking about, like, you have to realize that first and foremost, I'm a multimedia storyteller. I never set out to be like any expert in anything. I never set out to have a Kundalini awakening. It's just something that happened. And here I am living this purpose-driven life, having my whole world be totally torn apart and rearranged and put back together in the most miraculous way. But when I was asked to come here and thought about who I'd be presenting with, I realized there is something that I know quite a bit about. And it's been a real organic unfolding out of a search for my own quest, really, to figure out what was going on with me before I found groups like you guys who could tell me. And it is about community and the power of healing in relationships. So This is a quote that has always been really meaningful to me, even before my Kundalini awakening. It's by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, and it says, "There's almost a sensual longing for communion with others who have a large vision. The immense fulfillment of the friendship between those engaged in furthering the evolution of consciousness has a quality impossible to describe." And that's really has always spoken to me ever since I was young, but especially became poignant when I was going through something that I didn't understand and that I couldn't find anyone to explain to me. I couldn't find resources that helped me understand. As you'll find out, I eventually did, but in the beginning, well, actually, I should back up a little bit. So this is Gordon, by the way. Gordon is my partner, but we'll get to him.
We'll get to me.
So basically in 2017, I'm like living this amazing life. I've been practicing bhakti yoga and communing with the divine for as long as I can remember, and working in film, and you know, really kind of like manifesting and feeling like I'm really in the flow and union with spirit. And you know, suddenly I was what I call struck by lightning, because I at the time didn't know what was happening. And I don't need to tell people in this forum what that means, but it was just an indescribable like set of symptoms and experiences and states that I couldn't figure out, and that were absolutely overwhelming beyond anything I could possibly have imagined. And so I went on like this voracious search for answers, and most of what I found on the Googles was crap, to be honest. I went through a lot of stuff that confused me and that left me feeling hopeless and that made me more scared. And when you're in these vulnerable states, you know, during the sort of like repair phase in the dark night, it's all amplified. So I was really terrified. And I met Katrina Michelle, who was working at Assist, who many of you know, and probably some of you are like members of Assist. She's working at Assist, the American Center for the Integration of Spiritually Transformative Experiences. And she had been a transpersonal psychologist who had dedicated her work to studying and researching and raising awareness around spiritual emergency. And so we like met, of course, serendipitously, and formed a really quick friendship. And finally, I had someone who knew what was going on with me. And it was just the biggest, greatest relief of my life. I'm getting chills now as I think about it. And we just kind of knew like we were going to make a film together. And the film was going to be about our mutual search for answers. So hers from kind of like, she's had her own experience, but her experience didn't lead her to total devastation like mine did. So hers was more from a perspective of like gathering stories and academic, you know, what do I want to say? Like
Unitive experience?
Validating this in more mainstream worlds. And mine was literally an attempt to save my own life. So I don't know if many of you have seen our trailer, but I'll play it here. We quickly got funding for it. It was like the moment we set out on this quest, it was just like Shakti was like, this is what you girls are doing, go for it. So this is the trailer that everything stems out of.
I started to understand that there were a set of experiences called spiritual emergencies, and that this is one of them. And mine in particular was having to do with Kundalini phenomenon.
I wasn't actually sure what I was doing, but now that looking back, I was tapping in to a different realm. And I know that when I was there, I'd want to stay there. Even if I talked about it, my whole body lights up.
In the emergence of Kundalini, often a lot of psychic phenomena unfold: clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance.
For 2 years, every day I was wrapped in a blanket, sitting on a couch, every day literally going through this feeling, shaking, of I'm dying.
It was raging, and it caused so much pressure in my head that I had to lie in bed for weeks and not get up. And I was completely confused because what on earth could this be?
When you are going through a spiritual awakening, you are
somewhat letting go of the stuff that's too heavy, that's blocking you from actually servicing the world the way that you were meant to.
I literally felt like every breath I'm about to leave my body, leave this planet, and I'm literally going to physically die.
When we are born, right, we come into the world, the conditions around us probably are rarely so conducive to allow us to feel 100% safe, 100% loved, 100% seen and heard, right? And when we don't feel we are being seen, heard, loved, safe, connected enough, we begin to create beliefs, maybe about our body or about the world around us, that limit our relationship to our body or to ourselves or to the environment.
I think what's really important is that we develop a cultural context for understanding these experiences. So often people don't have anything to liken it to. There's nothing in our Western culture to point to. So we automatically go to the medical perspective, which again is pathologizing and limiting, damaging sometimes.
When lightning strikes,
When lightning strikes,
When lightning strikes,
it often felt like lightning surging through my body.
there's a healing process that happens. If it's guided, if it's supported, if it's intelligent, it's a healing process. If it's not guided, then it could just be like taking extra voltage and putting it through the old wires of a house, and it just blows all the circuits. That can happen.
So that was what happened to me. All of the circuits got blown, and so basically after creating the trailer and having real support of nature to get the rest of the film made, we had a plan to go out and complete the shooting of it with we had like a lightning mobile, and we were going to gather all these stories and find all these answers, and we kind of knew intuitively that we would find answers, and we would find things that we were looking for, but that the real healing we knew would come from the friends and family we met along the way. And so in a strange way, life has sort of imitated this art, because we were set to resume filming March of 2020, right, like the very week of lockdown. So what ended up happening was, instead of just stopping our filming, we decided to continue going on with our interviews, but putting them up on YouTube, as everyone was doing things on Zoom. And it was just the thing, we realized it was more about getting answers to people than it was about making films. So we did that. And then every day we just became like bombarded with messages from people who were really resonating with what we were creating and coming out of the woodwork to share experiences that they'd been having for years and years and years, and were never able to talk to anyone about it. Somehow they started to feel safe. And it was really actually quite, like, I wouldn't say surprising, but it was remarkable to me how many others there were, because to me, I had been feeling so alone. And one of the people that got in touch with us through this was this person sitting to my right. And I guess I can take us off of share while you introduce yourself.
I'm Gordon Curtis, and in 2013, September, I was living what appeared to be the perfect American dream. And I was on a book tour and was on my way back from a conference, but I had my whole life knew that something was missing, and was reflecting on the trauma, a lifetime of trauma that I had experienced, physical, emotional, and it really was a lot in terms of 10 orthopedic surgeries from extreme sports and 20 broken bones and real difficulty. I was planning on getting divorced after 22 years. And so I'm on the plane, and just spontaneously, and by the way, I had no spiritual experience to speak of, or practice, that is. And on the plane, I just suddenly said, "Dear God, I allow you in." And then it felt like lightning just shot right through my system and washed me of every possible negative emotion, feeling. I just started laughing, and everything was just perfect. And this proceeded for 5 months of peak state, which in relative terms, I understand is like insane. And so, yes, my circuits got blown, and my body changed, and my head is cracking, but at the same time, the oneness, the knowing, the love, the compassion was just palpable, and the knowledge and the wisdom that was just pouring into me, it was overwhelming. And little did I know that was just the preview, and I had been placed on top of the mountain top, and that ultimately I'm going to have to climb back up on my own. So 5 months later, I went suddenly into a deep, dark night of the soul for 8 years, and essentially devoted my life to learning about this process, researching every possible group, organization, teacher, healer, master, guru, just as Kate did. And interestingly, my book was originally called When Lightning Strikes. It was a business sort of social media book, social networking book. And I stumbled upon Kate's work, and I'm like, who are these people? And so I proceeded to reach out, and it was pretty evident from the beginning that we had shared the same experience, and we have since dedicated our lives to building this community.
And another person who also reached out after seeing one of our interviews was someone who I believe is watching right now, is Danny Antman, who has been also instrumental in building this community. But let's just talk about what the community is, for starters, because I think it's a little bit unique in some facets. It was really born out of a need to that we didn't find, which was to be able to gather with other people that understood. So the comments on YouTube and the comments in our email, and some people would text or call, were all about feeling lonely. And we have a Facebook page where I ask members who join, what has been the most challenging aspect of this process for you? And without a doubt, every single one of them writes that they feel alone and misunderstood. And so just out of that need, sort of, organically, I don't even really know when it started, but this community has formed. It's an online platform, and I have to share screen again. So here's what we do. We bring together those who are experiencing Kundalini awakenings or other spontaneous life-altering spiritual emergencies, typically induced by trauma, intense stress, spiritual practice, or psychedelics, to find friends and allies who understand what they're going through, as well as a sense of safety and belonging, via weekly support circles and special guest events, and also courses, so that we can, 1, find deep relief in knowing we're not alone, 2, share stories, experiences, and grounded resources that actually help to not only survive, but to thrive along the path to a transformed life. So that's sort of our big purpose. And it's run for the people, by the people. So the members are the ones that are driving the content we're creating. And we have a couple of things that we offer. We curate these conversations for consideration and prompt, people to think about things in different ways. I think this is a video. Yep. So people can post what's on their mind or what's on their heart, and they can, post it in the different topic sections and find other people who are going through potentially the same thing or something similar. I think you were going to say something here.
Yeah, just in the name of time, I'm going to be really brief.
Okay.
So these simple questions. They're seemingly so simple, but they really are sort of catalysts to people exploring their own relationship to that particular subject and then to share. And it's really powerful. And it's in terms of maintaining the engagement momentum that this community has managed to accelerate.
Through basically events. So we have several events that we host per month. We have twice monthly support circles where we just get together and we share what's alive for one another, for each of us with one another. And one of them is hosted by Danny. You can see our next one is coming up on August 12th. And another one of them is hosted with a really wonderful member of our community, Jessica Nathanson, on August 6th. And then we recently decided that we're going to have a rant and rave, because one of the best things that happens is sometimes when someone comes and they just bring like whatever they're feeling in whatever form, and they just throw it at the group, we all end up like relating and laughing. And it's just been like this really amazing way that we found energy to kind of transform in that space of like, all of your feelings are welcome. You're allowed to hate this process. You're allowed to love it. And we're just with you in that. So so that's one aspect, is the events. And here are some of the ones that we're excited about. As you can see, Danny is heavily featured here as an integral founding partner in this. Lawrence Edwards, we hosted recently. And we're really excited that Richard Schwartz has taken an interest in our work, because IFS, Internal Family Systems, has been, for me, a way to really work with my own process and my own trauma in a way that is actually results, working. It's working.
And if I can just add that with the Kundalini awakening, what Dick is very aware of, Richard, is that all of the trauma that we've been repressing comes to the surface, and you can't stuff it down anymore. It has to be healed, and his IFS modality is uniquely suited for working with that.
Yeah, we could probably do like another whole session on that, but I found that the language of internal family systems has given me a way to understand sort of the psychology of what's occurred for me within my own awakening process. So, but this is perhaps the most important and profound part of what we're doing. These are our support circles, and they can get silly, which really surprised me, because I thought like this was just going to be serious people holding space for one another and really getting into it. And we do that. We do. But it has really surprised me and amazed me how much levity has been created when we just get together and we gather. And you're not weird because you're going through something, or you're having kriyas, and I'm not weird because I have voices in my head. We're just in it together with people who understand. And these are some of the members who, like, this is from one meeting where we wore funny hats, and usually we have about 10 to 15 small groups. And these are people who I knew wouldn't mind me sharing their pictures. So, but let's hear from the members, because, they're the ones who are experiencing this. So I'm going to just play this little video of a couple of people we got to talk about what they've gotten out of this.
On the Kundalini journey, there's just things that happen that are outside the normal everyday conversation. Like, there are a lot of internal shifts and changes that are happening that's not really easy to just talk to a family member or a friend that you've known forever, who's been there for you but won't understand this as much. So having a community of people who are going through very similar things, very energetic things, or other transformational things, is super helpful, because it makes you feel way less alone.
I guess it would kind of be like, if you had cancer, probably the highlight of your week would be getting chemo with all the other people getting chemo.
Maybe get down on myself that I'm struggling with a certain aspect of something, or I'm confused about something. And then suddenly someone in the group will say something similar or chime in on something. And it's just like a really nice breath of fresh air as a reminder of kind of what's happening, and that you're not alone, and that there's like a community of people who are not only going through it, but like willing to help out too.
I think anybody going through this kind of awakening, or any awakening, energetic awakening, Kundalini, for me anyway, it was basically a lifesaver. knowing that other people are going through this. And I've turned to other people and being able to describe my experiences to people and know that they had had the same or are having the same experience, and that it wasn't me going mad or a made up thing or a physical thing or something I could get rid of.
Having a place to show up. So like whenever you're don't even want to show up anywhere, and having something to go to, for me, like kept me going, because that was when I didn't know what was going on at all.
Okay. So, I do want to say that I realize that we're definitely, we're representing a demographic that has been challenged with their Kundalini awakenings. So, I have arrived at the point that this is good for me and it has absolutely blessed my life. But if I didn't have people to turn to in my times when I couldn't see that, I wouldn't still be here. So this is why this is the segment of the community that we've chosen to serve. It's basically, it's really kind of simple. And, like Mauro was talking about the nervous system and the ventral vagal system. And it's amazing how much of a holding environment it's like the nervous system, I found it kind of knows what to do to unravel all of the trauma and the undigested material, the samskaras. It kind of knows what to do in the proper holding environment. And a couple of things that we've heard, one of the things we hear over and over again is that I just feel like an infant. And we were preparing for this yesterday at coffee, and this mom was at the table next to us holding her baby. And it just was like, what a beautiful example of, what it's like to be held. Like that infant is new in the world, and he or she, I think it's a she, is completely vulnerable as we become, when we're going through this process again. We're like literally learning to become new again and raising ourselves. And we need a safe holding environment. And so did you want to say anything about that?
It's something that Joan Harrigan speaks so eloquently of in Kundalini Vidya and in the PKYC work. It's about creating the right conditions that are conducive for Shakti to do her work.
Well said. This quote is by a friend, Booster Raddick, who's a somatic practitioner, and he said something that we know: when we are alone with too much, we have trauma. When we are together with just enough, we heal. And
as we have both scoured the Googles and everywhere else trying to find this right environment, and different spiritual groups and healing groups, and there was just, I never felt comfortable. People didn't understand what real Kundalini awakening meant. And so I just kept to myself, and even knowing how important relationship is in the healing process, I just couldn't get out of my bubble. And so we are creating here what we have yet to find out there.
Yeah. And it's really about creating a space. Like we call it, the film, the tagline was "When Lightning Strikes," exploring the unsexy side of awakening, because my initial ripening, as I think that's what you'd call it, Joan, but was nothing sexy about that. But it's like, it's creating a space where all parts are welcome. All of you is welcome. We don't have to just talk about, our unitive experiences, but that we can actually talk about the parts that are really troubling to us and how it's affecting us in our practical life. Like, we're householders. So I'm going to share with you some more member thoughts.
Connect with people, a community who actually get it, who can support you and say, we've got you, it's going to be okay.
Because we have the ability to give back, like in ways that we struggle with. Like, oh, I struggled with that too. Here's my understanding of it. And it doesn't have to be like, this is what you should do. It's more so like I hear you, I see you, I support you. What it's doing is really, it's breaking the mold within everybody's mind. And so we have our individual consciousness, and we're tapping into this collective consciousness. It's breaking down that mold. And a good example of that is like when you see somebody accomplish something, then you know it's possible for your own self. And so by seeing these other examples of people within the group, even if it's like something hard, like someone's going through something really challenging, and then you see that turn that they make just from being held, even just knowing that someone else is struggling with something that you struggled with is helpful in and of itself. Groups sometimes and social media in general is like, we show all these like great aspects, the glamorous aspects of ourselves, but it's really nice being able to just be like, I'm having a tough day. And somebody else is like, I'm having a tough day too. It's like, okay, we're okay. We're okay having a tough day. We can share that underlying sense of okayness despite the difficulty. So when we go through this stuff, there's such a intense desire to like alleviate that from somebody else. Like we wish we could take that burden off of somebody else. But it's sometimes hard because it's almost like everyone has to kind of go through their own stuff. At the same time, we can be like this like gentle reminder, this gentle like hug, this gentle like, hey, you can do this small motivator that sort of just pushes that a little bit so that they can move through some of the more difficult stages for sure.
Communities co-regulate.
Oops, hold on. Sorry. Oops. We're not there yet. So one of the things that we talk about a lot among us is like, it's hard sometimes when you're in the dark night to keep the faith. And so sometimes we have to be each other's faith, and we have to be around people who can know for us what we're temporarily forgetting. And I've always loved, this is kind of like one of our, our favorite like community memes is this quote by Thich Nhat Hanh about the next Buddha being a Sangha. And I just will share with you some of my personal insights from having this unfold through me is that I really thought it was going to be about the experts. I really thought I was going to bring on experts for people and we were going to find the right answers. But what ended up happening was, like Gordon calls it, the book club effect. It's like, we have people on and it's wonderful. We get new perspectives, but it's really about realizing that we are the experts. And so a number of times it's been very cool. We've had on someone who shares a perspective with us, or, someone, a teacher, or someone who we'd consider an expert. And then we'll kind of like stay on after and have like a little integration circle about like, how did that feel for us? How did that land? What is our truth around this thing that's being presented? Because I think that, and I'm sure you would all agree, that what Kundalini is calling for through us is our own guruship, if that's a word. I don't know if it is, but I just turned it into one. Basically learning to trust that our own innate wisdom coming through our bodies.
So you kind of touched on it.
I did.
But there's a felt sense in our everyday lives that our wisdom is solidified and magnified and internalized when we're simply reflecting on a teaching, or echoing what Kate said, that the real benefit really is, how does it feel to us personally?
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes personalized.
Yeah, and it's interesting, the shift that occurs definitely in me, and I can see it in others too, is like in the beginning it's like grasping for anything, like this person knows, or this person knows, and then as Shakti kind of does her work and you become more embodied and more of the crap clears out, it's like the body really becomes this amazing kind of tuning fork for truth. And so it becomes about integrating various wisdom from various sources into like a personal truth. And it's very cool. So I also think there's something interesting about a collective, like we magnify one another's intention. So you know, like the collective intention burns brighter than the singular intention, or the candle, when you hold many candles together, you get a brighter flame than when you have, you know, one here, one there, one there. So becoming a collective has been very, very interesting. And I'm going to let Jake take it from here.
But what community does is it ties people into the collective consciousness. And so that's where the power is, because when you're sitting on a call with people, there's something happening beyond the words.
I think we've been trained to look for the wrong thing, meaning we've been trained to look for answers rather than connection. And so this is an epiphany that's like happening with me right now, just as a result of just having you two as a safe space, somebody that understands what I'm going through, and I understand what you're going through. Because when you understand and you feel safe, you will actually expose deeper layers of yourself. And then you start to realize all along, you weren't looking for answers. You were looking for permission to hold, permission to see, permission to be safe. And that is the answer itself. It doesn't come from books and all that learning. And I'm not saying that none of that is helpful. It is to some degree. But that kind of healing only goes so deep.
And when someone comes up with a question, usually you ask that question of the people who have the question. And it's like, who had the question first? Like, there's no way to really prove that. You know, it just spontaneously came up, and then someone voiced it, and then everybody gets the answer. When it first started for me and like energy really started moving, I was like, I had this fear, like, something was wrong. Something messed up. Like, I'm all alone in this process, and I went terribly off the path or something like that. So having other people kind of serve as a confirmation that this is not only like a possibility, but it's like a lot of the things that are happening within me is happening within other people. So it's I don't want to say normal, but like it's more normal than I thought.
Just to be able to share their experiences of some of the phases they've gone through and how they're progressing, and because even though everybody's different and going through it different, the outcome starts to be, well, whether you can call it an outcome or the process starts to show similar rewards, if you like, similar things that are happening. And for me, it's just so nice to be able to have a whinge and a moan without somebody saying, pull yourself together, get a grip, or what are you talking about, or go see a doctor, take a pill.
Authenticity of having gone through it too. You know, like I think that's what communities are, people of sort of common paths or maybe common goals, but that's what makes it authentic and makes it believable. Everybody goes through it in different ways, but it's sort of directing us all to the same place.
So yeah, it's pretty interesting that among us, we end up, as diverse as our experiences are, we often find that we end up at the very same conclusions, and we have the very same insights. And, you know, it definitely lends to this feeling of like evidence through one another that we are being led somewhere, that this is a process that's safe to trust. And I love this quote by Jason Schulman about co-regulation. And he says, being with each other is an astounding thing. We reinforce each other's morphic resonance. So we do the work of spiritual awakening in relationship, which is one of the themes of the universe. When we are in relationship, we are in sync with the universe. Healing happens when we're together. It just does. And especially in a process that can feel so lonely, it's really, I think it's just key. Did you?
Yeah. And there's this magical thing that happens when we have the right people with the right subject in the right safe space setting. It's as if each of us is a lonely instrument, and then it becomes this harmonic resonance, and it becomes an orchestra of positive healing energy. It's palpable.
It is. And I'm going to have Jake take it away again and talk about co-regulation.
Communities co-regulate. And so
And so that's that sort of reparenting aspect. There are times when somebody said something like that to me that I hung on that the whole day or whatever, or for a couple of hours when I was going through like a big release of stuff that was coming up or whatever. I really was just like, okay, like someone else has been through this. It does get better. And then it also goes with regulation. That's what's so powerful about therapy. And that's another one-to-one experience where you're working with a therapist who's trained at helping people regulate. Well, community does it in a much more dynamic nature and organic nature. In that it is that sort of collective consciousness, but then it's tying into those other points of seeing other people doing things and seeing their own experience. And it's giving you that ground or that center out of all of that that's happening. And that's that co-regulation that happens. Yeah, it can be amazing sometimes how like certain energies will like turn over. Like it'll take one form, frustration or anger, and suddenly it's like turns into laughter and you guys are leaving like, what happened there?
So let's take you off of share. How do I do it? Okay, let's not take you off of share. Okay.
It should be down at the bottom of your screen to go off share.
I know it's usually right there, but
in the meantime, one of the fascinating things about this project, well, Kate and I were both hopeless connectors. In fact, my book was called Well Connected, and so we've not only researched every possible healer, teacher, master, guru, you name it, on our own, but together we continue to do that and have been sort of by default becoming aggregators of resources. We're not experts on and don't proclaim to be, but we can share our experience, and people are coming out of the woodwork to want to contribute, to want to help, to support. It's just been so heart opening, the receptivity.
Yeah, it's you know, that's one of the things I think was really palpably different for me the first time I experienced one of the support circles that was led by Katrina Michelle, who produced the film or produces the film with me, and one of her therapy buddies, was that there was no leader. Like it was facilitated and it was held, but it was like, it was just this most beautiful, I can't even put words to it. It was just this real depth, real interest everyone had in each other's experience that was all coming from like an equal ground. There was no hierarchy, I guess. And so everyone's experience became really validated. And I think there's some profound healing in that. Like I said, I thought
relating to that is that one thing that we've experienced and others have reported is that when we're working with a peer support model, you don't feel like you're watching some teacher or guru who feels unattainable and I'll never get to that level of consciousness or whatever.
Yeah.
And so this levels the playing field, and it is remarkable.
There are no pedestals, only lightning bolts. So yeah, I think that exactly what you said, Gordon. And then in terms of like what's unique that might be new here, I guess you kind of touched on that.
We've kind of touched on that, so I think and we'll save time, and I'll skip
Should we skip this one and then go to Merrily? I see you out there. You have a cameo.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's Ted. I just want to let you know you've got about 10 minutes.
Okay, so I'll play this. I think this is good.
Okay, and that includes
what I like about this particular group is that it has a diversity to it. There's a very diverse group of people, but also like a loose structure that I like. Like we also hear from teachers or other people who are talking about like IFS or other things like that, and the sessions
doing live events is like so key. So like bringing in people to share theirs. There are topics, okay, you're creating sort of talking points on a daily basis that stimulates conversation and like keeps that flow going. So it's less like, it has a good flow to it. Like in some of the other groups, it's like everyone kind of chimes in when they're really, really struggling, but maybe that's it. Or they have something really important to share, but it's more rare. In this group, it's more ongoing. It's more participative. That's a word. I don't know. Yeah, it's definitely a collective. It's a small, close-knit feeling. Like, I think that's a huge differentiator of how I think seeing people is really important as well. So we can't be in person all the time. So Zoom is a fair substitute for sure. We're not reveling in it in our difficult days, but there's a sense of like honesty there has a very healing energy to it. Like somebody sees me in that space and it's not judging, and is a few nice words to say or some words of encouragement is seems simple, but it's really, really powerful. Yeah. And like the humor aspect of it, like making it playful is like a really skillful way of working with the seriousness of it. In a way, it reminds me of like comedians. Comedians are like, listen to a comedian, it's harnessing like dark stuff and making it funny. So it's like, it has a transformative part to it. And sort of it lightens things up. It lightens the difficult parts up and just allows for a little bit more space. And when you're all laughing together and it suddenly kind of turns into that, you're like, okay, this worked out.
So it's funny, I see my dad on here, and my dad was my holding environment when I fell to pieces. My dad had to drive me around, and I couldn't be left alone for periods of time. I was terrified. And so I feel grateful, and I want to give a shout out to Dad. And I want to just really recognize that this is what's grown out of that, that in those dark, like if I had to tell the me then that this would happen, that Danny would contact me, that we would be creating things together, that this person that I live with and I love would contact me through the film. It's really true. What is said is like, Shakti will take you down, but she will put you back together in a way that I think like our minds just can't comprehend, because a force that creates worlds has much more power than we could ever portend to. So just one last little video and then we can open it up for questions. This is Marilee, you have a cameo here.
It's just hard to talk about. It really is. You mean this is when lightning strikes? I've told people I finally have a community. It's really nice. It feels so good. I got people who I can listen to and I can talk to, and we are talking about approximately the same thing most of the time. So
it was such a confusing time, and it still is a confusing time. And things change so quickly when you're going through this kind of experience. You know, your thought patterns are changing, your behaviours are changing. Everything's been rewired, and just to be able to connect with people, a community, it's a terrifying experience and process when it first starts to happen, and it can be for many years. And for me, it's been 15 months, and I'm just really starting to come into my own, if you like. But without community, I don't know how far I would have got or what would have happened. I'm just so thankful. I'm thankful for all the community and all of you. And yeah, that's all I can. That's all I've got. Much love to all of you going through this. Bye.
Okay, so that is our presentation. If I can figure out how to take this off of, I mean, I do this every day. I don't know why it's not working right now. Okay, there we go. Awesome. So yeah, I think we just are hoping that we can make the planet obviously needs this. I don't need to touch on that. I think everyone else here is giving beautiful examples of like what this process is doing for us individually and collectively and for the planet. And for the people who are struggling a bit, we just hope we're able to provide like just some arms to carry them across to the part where it gets really good, essentially. So,
and one other thing to add is part of the overarching vision is to normalize this and to bring it through the documentary, which is teed up and informed by the community, is to help people really understand that this is real,
right,
and it's happening at a perhaps an exponentially increasing rate for householders like us versus those that have purified and prepared in an ashram for 10 years. You know, for us, we didn't have that, and we have to kind of do it backwards and do all the healing afterwards.
Exactly. So our website, if you know anyone who is struggling and could use the support, is whenlightningstrikescommunity.com. And if you want to just get on our mailing list and get updates about the film or insights or about guest events, and we have a course coming up with Danny soon. I think in September we'll be launching that, and monthly support circles and all the good stuff. Just go to whenlightningstrikesfilm.com and you can sign up for our mailing list, and we can stay in touch. Thank you guys so much for having us. I'm really honored to be here.
Thank you.
And happy to take questions.
Okay, thank you, Kate and Gord. We haven't had any questions in the chat, so and we're also kind of down to the last 30 seconds as well. So
okay, perfect.
It works out very well. I appreciate everything you're doing, and you're doing a great job developing this community and bringing people together, and that's what it's all about. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.